Okay, some harsh words, Lisa, I see quoted that you have for the Senate chairman about the Senate chairman of the Budget Committee, the fact that they're not bringing their budget to the floor, and such terms as embarrassing spectacle of what went on.
It is. We have a law that says you have to pass a budget every April. They haven't followed the law for 3 years now.
I mean, if I get caught speeding, I get in trouble. I mean,
yeah, but there aren't any consequences to this particular law. But we believe in the rule of law. More importantly, we have a moral obligation. A debt crisis is coming to this country. That means you need to pass a budget to prevent it from happening. But if you're not going to budget, then you're not going to prevent it from happening. And unfortunately, our friends in the Senate had decided they just don't want to go on record, take any tough political vote, and therefore they're just not going to budget again. I feel sorry for Ken Conrad, who tried, but he just gave us a budget that had $2.6 trillion in new taxes, no spending cuts, and he couldn't even get that marked up in committee.
You say that you feel sorry for him, and look, I know all members of Congress and the House work hard, but the reason why he didn't get that markup done, he's the chairman, is because he was getting political pressures. I understand it from his leadership. I don't consider that try, because he still has the power and the authority. I don't know if your budget is a good one or not, but we're not getting what all the Senate even sort of considers. One. Yeah, no, I'm saying, but in order to consider yours and to balance it against the Senate, the Senate has to produce one, and so trying is not good enough.
I agree, because America deserves better. America does not deserve a debt crisis. This is the most predictable economic crisis we've ever had. Look, in 2008, when we had that economic crisis, that one caught us by surprise. What if your president, your congressman, and your senator knew about it at that time, knew when it was coming, what was going to happen, how to stop it, and had time to stop it, but didn't do so because it wasn't good politics? And what would you think of that person? That's basically what we're doing right now. We know a debt crisis is coming, just like what's going on in Europe. We know approximately when it's happening, why it's happening, and what to do to prevent it from happening. And you got to pass a budget to do that, which is what we're proposing, which is what we're doing. And we don't have any willing partners in the White House or the Senate to do that. And so, yes, that's why we're frustrated. But that's why we need new leadership. And that's why we're going to the country with a referendum on fixing this problem and letting at least the country decide this November, what do you want? Do you want a country that prevents this debt crisis, that gets back to prosperity, an opportunity society with a safety net? Or do you want to go down this path we're on, which is a debt crisis, where our children have an inferior standard of living than the one we have? That's where we're headed.
If Senator Conrad were here, and I doubt he's going to show up because I've been very harsh about the fact that, produce a budget. He may produce a better one than yours, in my opinion. I don't know, but they're not producing it. But if he were here, and I said, why aren't you at least put one on the table, what would his response be?
He would say the Budget Control Act is a budget.
Last October,
which obviously it's not in every way, whether it's technical or in real life. It capped the growth of spending on discretionary spending, calls for across-the-board cuts, which are not near the amount you need to solve a debt crisis. It doesn't even come close to reaching the standard of any budget that prevents a debt crisis. And it was not a substitute.
Are you saying, though, it's a lousy offer, a lousy budget?
No, it's just a small step in the right direction. But it was,
why isn't that a budget?
It's not a budget.
Why does Senator Conrad think that's a budget and you don't think it's a budget?
Because it doesn't make the choices. It doesn't prioritize spending. It doesn't say, here's how you fix our entitlement programs that are going bankrupt, like Medicare and Medicaid.
So you just think it's a lousy budget, though?
No, but it actually isn't a budget. It's technically not even a budget. It doesn't say, here's how you prioritize spending, this level, that level. It doesn't do that. It just says, if Congress doesn't fix the problem, then across-the-board cut happens. It says on 39% of our government, our discretionary spending, government agencies, it just sets those levels. But the rest of government, which is running on autopilot, which is driving our debt to a catastrophic level, it doesn't deal with those things.
I'll tell you what worries me about that particular budget, or whatever the Budget Control Act, is that all the cuts that go into effect occur after the election, deliberately, by Republicans, Democrats, anybody who voted for it, and that's so that we, the voters, don't take it out on November.
Not in the House.
In the Senate.
In our budget, we replace that by saying, here's specifically how we would solve this problem. And that's what we passed.
Do you agree that that Budget Control Act does those big cuts from last August?
Yes, but those cuts aren't near the amount you need to prevent a debt crisis in the first place even. And so we're saying, here's how we will replace them. We're going to vote on a bill in 3 weeks in the House that says, here's specifically how we will replace those across-the-board cuts. So we're actually marking up legislation and passing legislation in plain sight with the public in full view on how we will prioritize spending to prevent a debt crisis.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to criticize you for not producing a budget. You have produced one. They may not like your budget, but you have done your legal obligation. and now we're waiting for the Senate. Don't hold your breath, right?
It's been over 1,000 days already.
All right. Washington Examiner quotes you today as saying, and this may be an incorrect quote, but maybe it is, President Obama lies to distract the nation. Is that a correct quote?
I didn't say lie. I say he distorts our record to distract the nation. I think what he's trying to do is divide the country in order to distract the country from its failed record, its failed policies. He can't run on his record. It's not a good one. Look at gas prices. Look at poverty rates. Look at the economy. And he hasn't changed his tune. He's gone farther to the left. He hasn't moderated his position or his philosophy. So his only choice left, from what we see from all these speeches he's giving in campaign mode, is to divide the country in order to distract the country. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's lying, but he is dramatically distorting. If you look at all the speeches he's giving in our budget, he's making up these assumptions. Not a single statistic is accurate, but in order to try and distort, in order to divide and then distract the country.
All right, Catholic bishops are a little bit unhappy with you. They don't like the cuts in your budget to food stamps, as well as cuts in tax credits for parents of illegal children.
Well, we've long had a policy on other benefits that they don't go toward people who are here illegally. We're simply applying, like we do with welfare, over to the tax credit. Food stamps have quadrupled. What we're saying is let's bring them back down to pre-recession levels starting in 2016. Hardly draconian cuts. And this is just some of the bishops. And look, I welcome this kind of dialogue. I think it's fine. And good people of goodwill can have a disagreement over how to prioritize spending. But in a budget where we're growing spending at 3% a year versus the president's 4.5% a year, hardly draconian.
How did we get to the point where there are 46 million people on food stamps? I mean, what happened? Because, it does reflect on our nation as a whole that it's gotten to the point where, whether people, need them or they've been so impoverished in food. What happened?
We just had a hearing on this. About 40% of the rise in food stamps was because of the recession, but another 160% of the rise in food stamps was because of the legislation that the Pelosi Congress passed with the president in office. When it was Pelosi, the last Congress, Pelosi, Reid, and Obama Congress passed massive expansions of the food stamp program, which led to its quadrupling.
Congressman, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.